Welcome to Catholics in the Storm. My name is Patrick Coffin.
I'm Dr. Ed Mazza.
We're so glad you're here. There's so many Catholics out there. The more Orthodox you are, the more confused and troubled and maybe prone to despondency and depression you might be. If you grew up in the shadow of John Paul II, which I did, I got to meet the great man in 2001. I've probably been to, in total, 6 or 7 papal audiences. And since March 2013, the Catholic Church has undergone the most confusing time of not only corruption, but weaponized ambiguity. Catholics feel like the terra firma beneath their feet is sort of suddenly almost quicksand. You get that sense, Ed? Kind of the confusion's in the air?
Definitely. And we have to hold fast to tradition and to truth and to reason and not go off for these newfangled, spirit of Vatican II
Right.
type thing.
What can people expect from this one-day course? What are you going to be talking about?
Going to be talking about why Christ did institute the papacy, despite what your Protestant or Orthodox friends might have told you, or despite what the stuff coming out of Rome nowadays might lead you to believe. Going to talk about why the Inquisition and the Crusades were not what you think they are. And lastly, we're going to talk about, or I'm going to be talking about, how just because there are scandalous popes or anti-popes or bishops, that does not mean that the Catholic Church is not the true church established by Christ, or that the gates of hell have prevailed against it.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to be talking about the 4 Marian dogmas that are defined as dogmas by the Church. Also, sacred tradition for the rest of us, how Scripture is tradition. It's actually the smaller category amidst the larger category of sacred tradition. A lot of misunderstanding on how God has disclosed himself and revealed himself. And I'm giving a kind of a personal talk called The Gospel of Suffering, Making Sense of Suffering. I talked about the death of my daughter Naomi back in 2006. And it's very important that we can square the circle between the bad things that happen that hurt us and God being all-knowing, all-wise, and all-loving. In fact, as I say, Thomas Aquinas' 2 big objections in the Summa when he treats of God's existence, of course, he starts with the contrary opinion, then he corrects the opinion to express what he really wants to say, and that is nature and science have explained everything, so why do you need God? It's like this extra blob redundancy that you don't really need. And the second one, which I think is a more potent argument against God, and that is the existence of suffering, especially the suffering of innocence. You could make a case that a mobster who spent his whole life, raping, pillaging, and killing deserves his comeuppance, but a child in the hospital or like house burns and things like that.
In Dostoevsky's The Brothers Karamazov, the famous character Ivan tells his brother Aloysia, I will not accept God because of one innocent child that should suffer. Mm-hmm. And so that the resolution of that is the genius of Dostoevsky.
We're also going to be talking about the evidence that leads one to conclude that Jorge Mario Bergoglio has never been Pope. Ed and I at the final session are going to hash out some differences that we have, but we get to the exact same finish line. The question of whether Pope Benedict XVI deliberately invalidly resigned or whether he had a substantial error, that is number 2. Number 1 is the evidence in that document itself about what popes must say, must write in order to no longer be Pope. So we cover that as well. And maybe off the top, Ed, briefly, why is this position not sedevacantism? Because people, they throw the S word around like it's the argument stopper.
Yeah, some of these Catholics have in common with the leftists. They love labels, mm-hmm. and if they can label you, they can diminish you. Sedevacantists are people who think there hasn't been a valid Pope since Pius XII, perhaps. Mm-hmm. You and I are arguing that Pope Benedict didn't resign properly. How could you call us a sedevacantist?
Right, yeah. I accept the ecumenical council known as Vatican II. It's not Holy Writ. It wasn't called as a dogmatic council. It doesn't have the same stature as a Trent or as a Nicaea or anything like that. So we're not rad-trads, not a member of the SSPX, just want to be a loyal son of the Church. How do you feel about adjectives? Do you just prefer Catholic with Catholic plus nothing?
I have always preferred that, actually. Mm-hmm. But the important thing is that Catholics, capital C, adhere to the faith that has been handed down to us once for all, and not go along with the modernists, as Pius X and others have warned us about.
This is so important. Maybe that we can wrap up now before we start the official presentations, and that is know the deposit of faith. The deposit of faith given to us by Christ and his apostles transcends all popes, good or bad or indifferent.
Precisely. St. Paul says to hold fast to the teaching that I gave you, whether it was by word or by epistle. The Greek word is katechon, what restrains or what holds fast. And one of the marks of the end times is that the katechon is going to stop restraining, and there's going to be lawlessness.
Mm-hmm.
So as Catholics, as long as we follow the truth, we are good to go. I mean, 90% of the bishops could be on the wrong road, but as a Catholic, we know that Christ instituted the church, but it's founded on Christ, who is the truth, the way, the truth, and the life.
Yeah, and look at the era of the Arian heresy and Athanasius. He was pretty much outnumbered. So the faith is not determined by a nose count.
No.
One person plus the truth is a majority, right?
You got it.
All right. So we're really glad you're here. We know that you're going to really enjoy these presentations, 8 in all, and Ed and I are going to do a wrap-up session, maybe anticipating some of your questions. This is Catholics in the Storm. Thank you for joining us. Jesus is Lord. Hope is fuel. Stay Catholic.